everything we've done with completing the square has helped us to really find the roots or the zeros of the function rather well. But it hasn't talked about the vertex at all. That's where the vertex form of the quadratic comes in. Remember that the vertex form is f of x equals a times x minus h squared plus k, where the vertex is h and k. So it's the opposite sign of whatever's inside for the h, or the x coordinate, and the k stays the same. We can now complete the square to rewrite any quadratic function in vertex form. That way we can help find the vertex using completing the square, basically the same way that we do with our roots. So we have this function and it wants us to write it in vertex form and identify its vertex. The first step here is to separate this function out. We're not going to set it equal to 0 or anything like that. We're just separating it, breaking it up. So now I'm going to do x squared. I don't know what that is. Still don't know what that is. That's better. X squared plus 16x. And I'm going to give it some room. Minus 12. Now we're going to complete our square to finish this out inside of here. So how do we do that? Well, just like we've been doing. We do 16 over 2 squared. 16 over 2 is 8, and 8 squared is 64. So we get a plus 64 inside of here. Now this step is important because I can't just go adding 64 into the equation. And there's no equal sign to add it to the other side. So here I have to subtract 64 as well. If I add 64 in, I'm going to subtract it on the outside. Now, if you'll remember, we would do whatever's inside of here, x plus 8 squared. That's this thing broken down now. And then we do minus 12 minus 64. Negative 12 minus 64 will give me negative 76. If you look at this equation now, or this format here, it is in vertex form. So if I was asking what the vertex is, it would be opposite sign of this, so negative 8 and negative 76. That's my vertex of this function. And I'm done. If you don't believe that that's the vertex, why don't we graph it and see if we can find the vertex of this function. If I go to Desmos, I can graph this. X squared, I think it was plus 16x. Let's check it out. Plus 16x minus 12. Now when I look at this, I can't see much of anything, but I can just grab it and move it down the page. Let's zoom in down here. There's my vertex, and it's at the point negative 8, negative 76, which is just like we predicted. That's really it to completing the square to find vertex form. Let's try another one. Before we can move on here, what's the problem? Yeah, I have a 3 in front of my x squared. So before I can actually complete the square with this, I'm going to need to factor that 3 out. I'm going to separate it out first. I'm going to pull the 3 out in front. Now whenever we do this, let's go ahead and take this b and divide it by 2. Square it. Negative 6 divided by 2 is negative 3. Squared is positive 9. Add 9 inside. What do I need to subtract outside? If we're going off the last problem, we would think we would subtract a 9 out here, right? But don't forget, you have this 3 out in front that's getting multiplied by everything inside of here. So if I do 3 times 9, that would be 27 that I really added in because of the 3 out in front. So now I have to make sure that when I subtract something out here, I'm subtracting the right number. I need to subtract 27 because 3 times 9 is what's really happening inside here. I really added 27 in because of this 3 that's out in front. So anytime you factor a 3 out or any number out, make sure that whenever you're figuring out what to subtract back here, you account for the fact that you're multiplying whatever's inside of here by the number that's out in front now. Kind of a trick question. So now we set this up exactly the same way here. We have 3, and then this was negative 3, so x minus 3 squared. And then 7 minus 27 gives me negative 20. So my vertex is still opposite, so positive 3, and then it's minus 20. Again, we can check our answer here just by plugging it into Desmos. Plug in the original equation in, minus 18x plus 7. Now we're off in the middle of nowhere. We find our graph. There's our vertex. It's at the point 3, negative 20. Now, whenever you're doing this assignment that we do on these, I better see you actually doing the work to complete the square. Without that work, I'm not giving you credit. Speaking of credit, why don't we do function today? For 5 bonus points, send me the word function in an email. I'll just keep this going until I start getting people pouring in with those. Write the function in vertex form, identify its vertex. So the first thing that we need to check is there anything in front of the x squared? There is not. So now we can break it up. X squared plus 24x, close our parentheses, plus 145. Let's figure out what goes inside of here. 24 over 2 squared. 24 over 2 is 12. 12 squared is 144. So I subtract 144 from outside of here. This gives me x plus 12 because it was 24 divided by 2 squared. 145 minus 144 gives me positive 1. My vertex is at negative 12, 1. Once you get the pattern down, these are not too bad. Let's try this one out. What's the first thing we notice? It's got a 5 in front of the x squared. I can break it off and factor a 5 out. X squared minus 10x plus 128. Now it's minus 10, so I divide that by 2. Negative 10 divided by 2 squared. Negative 10 divided by 2 is negative 5. Negative 5 squared is 25. Remember, it's 5 times 25, so I'm subtracting 125 out here. Break this down. 5 times x minus 5 because it was a negative 5 inside of here, squared plus 3, opposite sign, that gives me positive 5, same sign, positive 3, and I'm done. It's in vertex form, and I found the vertex. All right, that's the end of this section. So we will have some homework on this. I might do some IXL or something tomorrow, maybe do a couple more examples, but that's about it.